Welcome to the Full-Time podcast is back after a long absence. I am Alex and I am here with Abdullah today and we are going to be going through the first games of the World Cup. We're going to be going through our power rankings. We're going to be dissecting everything that has happened so far.
So the way this is going to work is so far the games that have happened at the time of recording are those from Group A to Group D. So we're just going to go through those 16 teams and we're going to do a ranking from 16th, which team has been the weakest, to first, which team we think is the strongest so far.
All right. So do you want to start or should I start?
I think I'll kick us off with something which might be a little bit closer than you think, but at the end of the day, I went with the pretty obvious selection in 16th, and that's South Africa.
Yep. Yeah, me too. There were three teams that failed to score in all of the World Cup games that have happened, and South Africa was the only one of those three that never actually looked like scoring ever. So it's pretty obvious who the last place is. Two red cards. They just look like chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah, and even beyond just the red cards, which is obviously crazy, it's just their inability to build up at all was really concerning. And the fact that they continue to keep trying to build up and not go along with something, which is a huge issue, and it's going to remain a huge issue for them if they don't fix it going into match day two and match day three. I don't think they can keep relying on the build-up strategy they had against Mexico, because against South Korea and Czechia, I think it's going to become even more exposed than it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be super exposed against a team like Czechia because I think they've really just got their own game. Like, there's going to be so many teams in here that just play like Arsenal, and I hate that. I have a bunch of them near the bottom, but like South Africa, that this is the most obvious 0 points team that I can think of that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Anything else to say about South Africa, or should we just move on to number 15?
Um, they should they should get Shabalala back. 41 years old, he would probably be their best player. So
Yeah.
anyway, code 15. My 15. I don't know if it's the same as yours. I think it's pretty obvious, but I think it's Paraguay. They looked horrible for the most part against the United States, especially in that first half. They just kept getting penetrated the defensive line again and again. Like, you can't make the United States look like a genuine world class team. That's horrible offense. Like, you should be banned for that from the World Cup. Don't even let them play any more games.
Yeah, I think it's pretty disappointing with Paraguay because coming into this, you'd probably think that they'd be one of the stronger teams defensively. And actually, I look at some of the teams that we're probably going to have above Paraguay. By the way, I have Paraguay 15th as well. And I look at teams like Qatar maybe or, Australia. And you probably think of going into the World Cup that Paraguay's defense might be a little stronger than these teams. But the way they imploded against the US was so disappointing. And maybe it's because they conceded an early goal and they had to come out of their defensive shape. So it's really the onus is on them in these next few games if they don't concede an early goal to show that they still have that really strong defensive line. Because I don't know what's happened to them. I mean, CONMEBOL in South America, it's got really strong attacks with like Uruguay, Colombia, Argentina. So either the U.S. are the real deal, or Paraguay's defense is completely imploded from what they had during qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their defense. Like, they have some good defenders. It's not like this is a team of scrubs. Like Omar Alderete, he's a La Liga veteran. He's at Sunderland, I believe, last year. He's a veteran center back, but it's just complete defensive lack of communication for Paraguay. I don't know. It's horrible for me. They got his own goal exactly 7 minutes into the World Cup, and it just completely set the tone for them.
Do you think Paraguay have any chance going into the next few games to like get out of the group? Australia is obviously going to be a tough game now, just given what they did against Turkey, and Turkey are a really good team as well.
I mean, I think the U.S. is probably going to be the toughest task out of these teams. So you never say never. But for me, Paraguay should come into both of these games firmly second favorites to win them. I think Australia and Turkey could get a pretty easy 3 points out of them.
Hmm. All right, number 14. I went for a team which actually had a pretty good match. They won, all things considered, in terms of the results, but their general performance was a little disappointing. I'm not sure if it's sustainable. So for me, I actually went with Qatar in 14th.
Yeah, actually, I had the same thing. I thought you would have them a little bit higher just based off the result, but it's just, the the performance didn't move me at all. If it wasn't for that late equalizer, we would be putting them on the same level as a Paraguay or a South Africa. Um, it was a good defensive display after that first goal, but it really was Abu Nada who who bailed them out so many times, and Switzerland needed just more attacking wise. They Qatar got lucky off that. This is not a 1-1 result,
Yeah, I
and
think
so
Qatar they weren't that good, honestly. And even after going 1-0 down, they never really looked like scoring until that last attack. And I'm just concerned whether that's going to, be able to carry into these next games against Canada and Bosnia. Especially with Bosnia, I feel like they're going to be a bit of a threat with Dzeko coming back and with their set pieces. And I don't see Qatar being able to defend against that very well. With Canada, maybe they have more of a chance of being able to park the bus given the finishing issues that Canada had against Bosnia. But I just don't know if that goalkeeper is going to have, two more world class games. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think Qatar have much of a chance of getting out of this group. But the result is pretty good for them, getting their first point at a World Cup. That's something like they can take home at least.
yeah, it's gonna be that moment that they remember forever. But for me, that's gonna be pretty much it for them. I think Switzerland did horribly in drawing to them. It's a rare lapse from Switzerland, who we usually see pretty competently in these tournaments. I'm very surprised that I'm sure we were all incredibly surprised when Qatar actually got a result out of them. But if you actually watch the game, Qatar was not in it for the vast majority. 70% possession to 30, 27 shots to 5. It was horrible. It's not something that can sustain results.
Do you want to tell us number 12?
All right, my number 13, and this may be a little surprising, I've gone with Turkey. Um, they were the second out of three teams who were held to scoreless in this first match day, and the reason that they are here, and I'm gonna have Switzerland a lot higher, is that they just looked horrible. I need to rant about Turkey because for having so many shots, for having so much possession, 63% possession, 28 shots, they were surprisingly horrible in front of goal. Like this was a team for me. It at least half the possessions it was get it to Goulet and pray, and like Goulet's the worst get it to him and pray player I've ever seen. Like he had at least 200 touches, and none of them were very constructive in any way. He he absolutely dropped a stinker. Çalhanoğlu was horrible. Yildiz, he apparently came on at halftime. I didn't even notice him until like the 80th minute. So it was just a terrible display, in my opinion, in general. And there's a lot that Turkey needs to be worried about, especially with a match against the United States on the horizon. So it's a horrible result for Turkey. They need to seriously up their game.
Personally, I'd actually disagree with that. I know the result didn't go the way that they wanted, but I feel that's more down to Australia having a really good game than it is to Turkey having a bad game. I'll talk more about it when we get to my power ranking because I actually went in the opposite extreme of you, and I probably have them a lot higher than most people right now. I feel like, their end product was pretty disappointing, but I look at the names in that team and some of the buildup that was happening in that game with like Kalinoglu, Yildiz, Kaku, Yilmaz, Guler, and I look at that team and I think that there's definitely quality there. And a lot of the times even Australia were scoring from counterattacks from really good chances that Turkey carved out that they just weren't able to convert. I think an area where I'd be really concerned with Turkey is their defense and how much that's going to cost them going forward. But personally, I do see this as a bit of a blip for them, not so much a warning sign that they're going to struggle that much against Paraguay or that they're completely out of it against the U.S. For me in 13th, I went with a team that actually did really well and is probably doing pretty well to not be bottom of this list go after match day one because I'm sure a lot of us would have had them there or expected to have them there. But I went with Haiti in 13th. I thought Haiti looked absolutely fantastic against Scotland, in terms of their ability to control the game and to create a lot of chances. Um, and I think that they really could do something against or they really could do something against Brazil or Morocco, and we could be surprised by them. The only issue I have with Haiti is I don't know if I trust them to finish their chances in the boxes, and I don't know if I liked their decision making that much. So even though they did play well, I don't know if they can translate playing well into, actually getting a result that they would need to maybe get out of the group or even just get a point for the pride for their own pride. But I do think Haiti did look pretty good in match day one against Scotland.
That's surprising. I actually had Haiti a lot higher than this, even despite the loss. But I could see it. I thought I thought you were more on the Haiti train than that. That's surprising to me. Um, but yeah, Haiti to me, honestly, unlucky to not get a result. They looked more like getting a goal in their game, I think, than Turkey did. Personally, they had a lot more close chances, even though they didn't have as many chances. They outshot Scotland 13-8. They just need that finishing in front of goal. They've honestly just immensely outperformed expectations. I'm sure most of us expected them to just be pushovers against Scotland, but they've actually done really well, and I have them quite a bit higher, but we'll get to that later. Who do you have at 12?
So in 12, I actually went for Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think that they show that they can definitely be a box threat and that they're strong from set pieces. But I think besides that, I didn't see much from Bosnia that left me too impressed. Defensively, they were getting carved open a lot. I think if Canada had better finishing, then Bosnia would have been down by a lot more than what they actually were. I don't think we saw enough from them in the attack. I think that Jacko coming back is going to be big for them, and he needs to have a good World Cup. But I don't think based on what we see, we can really trust them to, definitely beat Qatar or definitely get a result against Switzerland.
Yeah, I agree. I had Bosnia at 11. I had them one higher, but definitely there are major questions that need to be asked. I'm sure many Bosnians thought that they would put on a better show than they actually did against Canada. They were outperformed for a significant portion of the game, especially after that first goal. And honestly, they were just an incredible, sad Kolasinac goal line clearance that defied physics away from getting nothing out of that game. And I think for me, they need to get to the drawing board. They need to look at other ways to play because this isn't gonna get them anywhere. This isn't gonna get them a result against Switzerland. This isn't gonna get them a result against Qatar. They need to start using that physicality because they are a very good, very physical team. Like half their Dons are like 6 foot and over. They were winning every header over the Canadians, who are still like a pretty physically good team. Like Canada had 15 corners or something like that. They have a ridiculous amount of corners, and they couldn't make any of them dangerous because Bosnia were just so airily dominant. And then when Bosnia got a corner, there was a goal. So I think they need to start focusing more on that, less on parking the bus, defending, because they were honestly incredibly lucky to not lose that. For me at 12, I've got Czechia, which may seem a bit weird to have them. worse than Bosnia, but for me, they were just super disappointing for me. They played almost exactly like an Arsenal team. I'd expect I'd expect an Arsenal team too, and they were just completely discombobulated by the the Korean press, by the beautiful attacking football that they were playing. Overall, overall, Chechi was just really disappointing to me. I have them, I have them 12. They need to step up if they want to get a result against a team like Mexico. They should have South Africa under wraps, but if they want to get a result against Mexico, they need to switch something up.
That's interesting because I actually have Czechia a lot higher, and I agree with you that they do play a lot like an Arsenal team, but I don't think that's a bad thing, at least in terms of their power. For really the good of the sport and like I guess watching engaging games, it's a bad thing. But in terms of actually going out and winning, if you're able to be a team like Czechia and sit back and defend really well and then get set pieces and score, that can make you really dangerous, not just in general games against teams like South Korea or like Mexico, but also like when you get to like a knockout round and you're playing against a team where you're the underdog, is there any other setup than being really compact defensively and being able to dominate on set pieces that would give you the best chance of winning? I don't think so. I think if you're pressing a team that's like really talented with the ball, like maybe Morocco, for example, then you're probably going to be at a disadvantage. If you're trying to play through a press that's really strong, you'd be at a disadvantage. I think Czech is, because they play like Arsenal, are really well set up for this World Cup and to be able to maybe even make a run in it. But I'll talk about that when we get to where I have them a bit later on.
All right, who do you have at 11? Because I got Bosnia. I've already talked about them. So who's your 11?
My 11th is actually Scotland because I was a little bit disappointed with them actually. I was expecting a bit more against Haiti. I know that Haiti had a good game. I think Scotland definitely could have done better. I don't think McTominay had a good game, and I was expecting him to do a lot more. I think that if you're only winning 1-0 against Haiti and you are going into a group against Brazil and Morocco, I think that's a little bit concerning for them.
I can see where you're coming from. I have Scotland quite a bit higher, but that's just on the higher end of my mid performers. Um, I could definitely see where you're coming from, but for me, Scotland, they were defensively pretty well set up for the most part. I saw a lot of promise out of them. I need the one thing for me is I need to see more out of players like Scott McTominay, Ben Gannon Doak. I think they were players who we really thought were going to make a massive difference for Scotland, but they've ended up being mostly disappointing in that first game. But for me, I think Scotland have put together a pretty solid base. They've broken that duck of getting a World Cup win. I think that could actually build them some good confidence going into their games against Brazil and Scotland or Brazil and Morocco. So I've got them a bit higher, but I'll get to that more when we're there.
Hmm. Who do you have in 10th, Alex?
I have Haiti. I have I'm staying on the Haiti Scotland. I think if we were gonna rank these 16 teams before the tournament, we'd have had Haiti last. And even though Haiti lost, and even though they were held to the 0 goals, they honestly put together a much, maybe not better, but a much more entertaining performance in a good way than some of these teams like Bosnia and Czechia that I have below them. They played a really nice style. It was entertaining, but not in a house on fire South Africa way. It was I don't know, I liked how they played. They looked dangerous for the entirety of the match. I have my stocks in Martin Experience. I was devastated when he skied that over the bar in stoppage time. But I don't know. For me, Haiti, they could be someone who could make a team like Brazil or Morocco sweat. Maybe not Morocco as much, but I can see them scoring like the fifth minute against Brazil, and it's the it's an iconic moment. And Brazil come back and win like 4-1, but they still made Brazil sweat. I think Haiti's capable of that.
Honestly, I'm kind of sad that Haiti ended up in this group with like Scotland, Morocco, Brazil, because I feel like if they were in like not any other group, but in a different group, maybe like Group A or Group B, they could definitely have a chance of like getting a result and making it out of those groups.
Yeah, I would definitely be nervous if it was a Canada playing them or like a Bosnia or like put them in group B, put them in the group of life, and they have a solid chance of getting points for sure.
For me in 10th, I have a team which, it might be a little bit low, but I just feel like they're weak in key areas and that could make them really vulnerable in this tournament. And for me, I have in 10th Canada.
Yeah, that's fair. I have them in ninth. The game against Bosnia, I think, raised more questions than it answered. Like we thought Jonathan David was going to go ramp in this tournament, especially in these first couple of games without Alfonso Davies. This was really his chance to put his mark on the tournament, and he really hasn't done that at all.
It was such a poor performance from him. Honestly, he got hooked off, and we looked so much better when he did come off. With Canada, I just feel like we have good players in being able to progress the ball forward. I think with Kone, Buchanan, when Davies comes back, but even without him, Ali Ahmed, Estacio, those are all players who I have a lot of faith in getting us from our third of the pitch to the final third. But where I think Canada is really vulnerable is being able to convert chances in those final third. And you saw it against Bosnia. We were creating a lot of good chances and opportunities, but we just couldn't finish it. And if we took those chances, which were oftentimes Jotic chances, we definitely could have won that game pretty comfortably. I think that we're weak in attack, but I also have a lot of concerns just with us in our defensive third. I don't know if I trust us against Bosnia. They sat back a lot after our first goal, but before that goal, they were carving us open a lot, and there were opportunities for Bosnia to be even like 2-0 or 3-0 up in like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game because of how we were doing defensively. I think that another big issue for Canada is a lot of our style of play is oriented around winning corners and set pieces because we go through the wings and then Buchanan might win us a corner. But I don't think we're one of the stronger teams aerially at this tournament. So I look at our path through this tournament or through the World Cup, and maybe let's say we finish like second, and we have to play Czechia, for example, because they finished second, just hypothetically. If that happens, I don't trust Canada to be able to win all these corners and score from it because Czechia completely dominated us aerially, and I think that's going to be a huge issue for us is trying to find a way to convert the talent that we have in creating chances into actually making chances that can be converted and actually taking those opportunities to score goals. If we can do that, I think Canada definitely has a chance to make actually a bit of a run at this tournament. But if we can't do that, then I think that it's going to be very difficult for us to do much.
Personally, for me, it's a matter of who do you put at the striker. We were talking about this more last night. We were saying like definitely Kyle Larin I think needs to start against Qatar, but if Davies is back, does he make an appearance at striker? Because I could see him definitely I could see him definitely being one of our better finishers. Do we chop Jonathan David? Do we chop Oliver Shea? Who do we and that's going to be a really difficult decision for Jesse Marsh. I think we need to put the focus on speed. I think we should do something like a Davies and a Laren with Schaffelberg and Bombito if he's back, Davies if he's back. Really focus on that speed. Tajon Buchanan on the right be really good for counterattacking. Maybe we absorb some pressure and counter with our speedier players. But against a low block, like we know Qatar is going to be playing, I don't know. I don't know.
We might
It's
need
going to be
to.
really interesting.
We might need like two big men, maybe. So like maybe a Laren and a Promise David, or something like two just out and out strikers that we can cross the ball into. Because I don't think this experiment with like David in the 10 striker role is sort of working. Maybe we just focus on our wing play and trying to cross the ball and scoring like that.
Honestly, I see that. That would be probably be better, especially for a team like Qatar. I don't think they have a lot of massive center backs up there, and you get up a guy like Derek Cornelius for the corners. We saw him be cross the ball a lot against against Bosnia. We could maybe swap out a guy like the Fujrol for a taller center back. A guy like Alfie Jones. I'm not sure how tall he is, or like Joel Waterman, but we need some tall guys against Qatar. I think it. Whatever Jesse Marsh is going to do, he needs changes. I think.
Yeah. So you have Canada number 9. I have our North American counterpart, and that is Mexico.
That seems low. Why is that?
Personally, I think Mexico benefited a lot from South Africa being bad, more so than their own quality. I look at the kind of situations that Mexico was putting themselves in defensively, and I think that if there was a stronger team than South Africa playing against them, Mexico would have been carved open. So I don't trust the Mexican defense against teams like South Korea, and even against Czechia. I don't know if I trust them to be able to stay defensively solid against players like Patrick Schick, for example. I look at Quinones mainly as their star player and the main person who can lead this team forward. If they want to have a good World Cup, they need Quinones to have a good tournament. And if he doesn't, then I can really see Mexico struggling. But personally, even though they won 2-0, I wasn't fully convinced with the way they were taking their chances and their end product, as well as their defensive quality. And I think we could really see them struggle against harder opposition.
I could see where you're coming from. For me, I've got Mexico a lot higher. I really do rate them highly, especially because we're going to be seeing them at home a lot. We're going to be seeing them at home. They're going to be definitely, I think, top two of the group. You say teams like Czechia could struggle, or could struggle against teams like Czechia, but I don't know. For me, they're just firmly a level above these teams like a South Africa, like a Czechia. I think the only team that can really challenge them is South Korea in that match day two. That's going to be the fight for first in the group. I have South Korea and Mexico like right beside each other. I can kind of see where you're coming from, but for me, I don't think Mexico really needs to rely as much on its individual players. I think as a team, they're better than the sum of their parts. They're just gonna be what's the word? They're gonna be like pushed forward by their home crowd, Azteca or the Guadalajara stadiums. I just don't see how you can put Mexico at 9, and I think there's going to be a lot of worse teams, especially ones that didn't win games above Mexico. I just think that's a little low, even with the points that you had.
Honestly, I'm just not convinced by them. I think they have to do it against a team like South Korea. Even if they lose against South Korea, if we see a good performance from them, then I'd definitely see them skyrocketing. But I just based on what I saw in South Africa, we can't just go off of the result because the result was largely down to South Africa being a bad team more so than I thought Mexico being a good team. And I look at, the way that they got a red card. I look at their defensive structure. I look at their goalkeeper as well, not starting Ochoa, and the way he was, fumbling the ball a lot of the time. I just don't know if it's going to be successful against harder opposition, but I guess we'll just have to see going forward. Okay, all right, who do you have number 8, Alex?
Okay, so for my number 8, I've got Australia. I was honestly really impressed by what they did against Turkey. You can kind of compare it to Qatar, but I feel like they did everything Qatar did, but made it two or three times better. They absorbed the pressure. Um, they definitely let a lot of they definitely let a lot of shots go, but at least like 2/3 of them were long range, low percentage options, desperation attempts from Turkey. Their goalkeeper, Patrick Beach, 8 saves, great performance as well from him. I think he could have a really good tournament, especially against the teams like Paraguay and USA. Um, I really think this Australia team can go on a bit of a run here. They could definitely beat Paraguay, and from that point on, they're going to get through the group. They're going to get into the round of 32. They could face a beatable team. I think this Australia team has a lot of surprises in them. Iran Kunda, I rate him super highly, especially after that goal. That was a beautiful run, beautiful goal. He showed to be a better star boy than Arda Güler. Honestly, it was the young player that everyone was talking to going into that game was Arda Güler, but the young player everyone was talking about going out of that game was Iran Kunda, and with him leading the charge, leading the effort of the Australian team, I think that they could really make a run. I'm putting all my stocks in Australia after that performance. I'm super impressed.
I actually agree with you completely. I have them a little bit higher as well. Australia, I think they showed against Turkey that they can beat anyone. And this low block that they sit in and their ability to be lethal in counterattacks is definitely something that can be successful going forward. Because I still rate Turkey as a good team, so I can see them if I see them do it against Turkey so successfully, winning 2-0, not conceding anything. I don't see any reason why they can't do it against the US as well, or do it against another team that's stronger in the round of 16 or the round of 32. Um, and I look at what Australia did, and I think that they have the ability to beat anyone if they have a good game. That's what they showed me in that match against Turkey. The one thing I'm worried about is if it's a sustainable thing for Australia. Because I look at teams like Paraguay, for example. Paraguay probably had a better defense than Australia, or we thought they'd had a better defense going into this World Cup. So I just wonder if Australia concede first or early like Paraguay did against a team, what does that look like? Do they, when they get out of their defensive block and they can't be the transition team anymore, the counterattacking team anymore, how are they going to do? And is it still going to be as successful as they were when they were the transition team and the counterattacking team? Because just as easily as they can go beat Paraguay and finish top of, or not finish top, but get out of the group fairly easily, they could concede an early goal to like an Enciso strike, and then what does that look like? Are they able to come back from that? And I think that's the biggest question that you have to answer about Australia. But based on what we saw against Turkey, their ability to soak up pressure and hit on the counter is very lethal, and it could prove to be a really difficult thing for a lot of teams going into this World Cup. But I did have them a little higher, so I guess we can talk about it maybe a little bit more when we get there. For me, in eighth, I have Czechia, one above Mexico. And I know that they lost their game against South Korea, but I just do feel like they still have the tools required to be able to be successful against some of the weaker teams or the teams that I wasn't as impressed with. Like I think that Czechia's defensive block is going to be very difficult for Mexico to break down, and I think that their ability to do stuff in the air, and I think with Schick in their team, I think that they can definitely be very strong in the attack. With players like Suchek, players like Krejci, I think that they're a huge set piece threat, and I think that set piece threat is really going to take them far in this tournament. Or I guess not take them. Actually, no, I think it could take them far. I can easily see them making a round of 16 push even at this World Cup just off of their set piece threat and their ability to be strong defensively.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I've talked about Chechnya already. I can see where the physical threat thing is coming from, but I feel like there's just so many teams who are relying on that. I feel like it's getting old. I think Mexico with the Azteca behind them can break down this Czechia team. It might only be a 1-0, maybe a 2-1, but for me, Czechia just needs to change something. They don't look like they're really maximizing what this team could bring them because they have some really good talent. They have as you said, guys like Patrick Schick, like Krejci, and Kovar is a really solid keeper as well. You've got like David Jurasek. You've got Tomas Suchek in midfield. You've got Adam Klozek. You've got Tomas Shorley, like 6'7", massive, massive man. There's so much actual talent in this team, and they just don't look like they're maximizing it, and that's disappointing for me.
Who do you have number seven?
All right, again we've talked about them before. I have Scotland number seven, and while what they did show against Haiti wasn't as promising as we would have hoped, I had them winning 3-0. They only won 1-0. This team to me seems like a team of fighters. Guys like McTominay, Lewis Ferguson, John McGinn, uh, even guys like Ben Gannon Doak, even though they don't have that experience. This is a team of fighters. Maybe I'm just reading in too much because I still remember that Denmark game and how insane that was. But for me, this just seems like such a together team, and it's definitely one for me that could bring a surprise on a Morocco or especially a Brazil. It's maybe I'm the delusional one. I still remember seeing Scott McTominay score an insane free kick goal against Spain like 3 years ago, and that might be subconsciously my impression of the Scotland team. But I'm just putting my stocks in this group of players that they are fighters, and when they face stronger opposition that we haven't seen them play yet this World Cup, I think they're gonna really push them to the limit, if not even get a result out of it.
Honestly, I agree with you. Like going into this tournament, I really thought Scotland could give problems to teams like Brazil and Morocco, and especially after what we saw from Brazil against Morocco, and we'll talk about them later. Like if Brazil show up the way they did in those first 35 minutes, I think Scotland can definitely win against them. But it's just I feel like I can't. I have to separate what Scotland did before with what we're seeing from them right now, and I have to combine those two things. And what we saw from Scotland against Haiti wasn't just not good enough for a team that has outside ambitions of beating a Brazil or beating a Morocco and like trying to claim a second place spot or a first place spot. And I think Scotland can definitely make it out of this group. And I don't expect them to be cricket scores against Morocco or against Brazil. But what we saw against them in the attack wasn't good enough. And if you can't be good enough against Haiti, then how can you be good enough against the likes of Gabriel, Allison, against the likes of Bono, against the midfield of Morocco? And I think that we definitely need to see improvements. I agree with you that we see a lot of fighters in the Scotland team, but they just weren't good enough on in that Haiti game. And if we want to see Scotland do better than third place at this in this group and eventually advance in the World Cup, then those fighters need to translate that fighting spirit into better performances than we saw against Haiti.
I mean, for me, we definitely need to see better than we saw against Haiti. But I think that a lot of Scotland's fight is going to come from the fact that they're playing a team that will be better than them. That is the favorites over them, like a Morocco, like a Brazil, like probably who they'd end up facing in the round of 32 if they make it. I have I have McFlatman, I have McTominay making a James like run in this tournament. He's not maybe not exactly scoring in every game, but I see him scoring a lot of massive goals for Scotland, especially in those big games against Brazil, like a Morocco. I'm putting a lot on him. I'm putting a lot on John McGinn, who's already put them put them through against Haiti. I just think they have all the pieces necessary to do it.
For me in seventh, I have Switzerland. I thought Switzerland played a pretty good game against Qatar. I think they were really unlucky not to have won that game, and even forget when just win that game really comfortably, like 3-0, 4-0. They created a lot of good chances, and they have the quality of player to convert those chances on another day. It just wasn't their day. The Qatari keeper had a really good game. I think their finishing could have been a little bit better. But Switzerland definitely did do well in that game, and I still think that they can, finish top of Group B, and I still think that they can make it to round 16 and do well at this tournament.
I agree. I've got Switzerland sixth, so right around the same place. The reason that they're so much higher than Turkey is just that it's obvious that Switzerland was so much better than Qatar, and it's just one of those days. It's one of those like FMings that you could say it's just the poor finishing from guys like Brel and Bolo, like guys like Dan and Doy especially. Like, oh my goodness, he had like 10 shots and didn't get like any of them on target. But it was just not their day. It's still obvious that Switzerland was much better than Qatar, but it's a defensive lapse. It's a lack of finishing. Call it call it whatever. Switzerland are still a really good team and deserve to be high on this list. And the reason that it's so much better than a team like Turkey is that Turkey looked so much worse than we expected them to look. Turkey didn't have any of those really, really dangerous chances that Switzerland had. And it wasn't really down to bad luck. It was down to really poor team planning. It was down to really poor tactics, I feel. But when it but for Switzerland, it was just bad luck.
Well, I got Turkey coming up soon, so I'll talk a little bit more about them when we get there. For me in sixth place, I actually have Australia. And, we already talked about Australia quite a bit, but the reason I have Australia so high compared to, teams like Switzerland or even Mexico, for example, is I look at teams like Switzerland or Mexico and I definitely see a cap. Like, I know Switzerland, Mexico, Czechia, these are all pretty decent teams, but let's say they come up against Germany, right? I know it sounds crazy, but I don't think they have like really that much of a chance against a team like a Germany or maybe a France. But I look at Australia. I actually think Australia has a chance of doing something against those kind of teams. Based on what we saw against Turkey, their ability to soak up pressure and how lethal they were in transition makes them much more dangerous to to the top tier teams than I think some of the other teams that might have had better attacking performances did. And for me, that's why I have them so high in six. I can really see them. I wouldn't predict it or expect it, but if it happened and they made a run to a quarterfinals, maybe because they beat some really really difficult teams, I wouldn't be the most surprised person in the world.
No, I think it's time for us to stop underrating Australia going into these tournaments because it's the same thing as Qatar. They nearly they nearly got Argentina to extra time. Tournament winners, Argentina nearly went to extra time against these guys. Australia's just a really, really solid team. They always really have been, and we're always surprised every World Cup when they come out and they're a solid team again. When that needs to stop. This is a team that I think probably is going to take that second spot in the group. I can't see Turkey beating the United States, but I definitely see Australia beating Paraguay. So this is this is a really impressive Australia team. I've already gone on about them, but definitely a deserved spot at six. Who do you have at five?
So at five, I finally have the team that we've been waiting for so long. I know that they lost. I know that they look bad, but I still have a lot of faith and stocks in Turkey. I think that they had really good build up. They had really good. They have really good players and a lot of talent. I know they did bad against Australia, but I think that that's a lot more down to Australia being a really solid team than it is to Turkey being a bad team. And I still have a lot of faith in Turkey at this tournament to first of all get a result against the U.S. I can easily see that being a draw or an exciting like win for Turkey, and to get a result against Paraguay. And I think that after that happens and once they get out of the group, I still think the sky's the limit for this Turkey team.
I can see where you're coming from for sure, but Turkey, if you the thing is, you fell asleep like halfway through the match. So for me, watching it, I was like halfway asleep. I was halfway asleep too. But in the times that I was watching, that I was really intent in. Turkey never actually looked that much like scoring. They looked more like scoring than South Africa did, but that's not saying much. Other than that, Goulet needs to seriously up his production. Needs to up his minutes. Yildiz needs to ditch whatever Nardo hair he has right now and just lock in and focus. Çalhanoğlu was really disappointing. Like I was expecting him at some point to unleash a shot from like 30 yards that would either go in or really trouble the keeper, and he never did. Turkey has ballers, and they're really high potential, a really high potential team. But it's another case of them just they're just bottling it again at a major international tournament, and I've seen this script before, and I know how it ends.
I do think that I'm getting. I know it sounds crazy, like obviously not to the same extent, but I'm getting kind of the vibes of an Argentina against Saudi Arabia type of performance where you have this bad performance and it sort of wakes you up. I look at the players that Turkey has, I look at what they were doing in that game. Like they had good chances. Like there was this one shot from distance which like really troubled the keeper. It was an excellent save. The first goal that they conceded came from a counterattack from a good chance that they carved out that just wasn't converted properly. I really do have faith in Turkey going forward. Um, okay.
I mean,
So
I hope so,
pause.
but
All right, who do you have in your top four?
All right, so I've already said I Mexico fifth, but we've already gone over them. My number four, and I think might be your number four as well. I've got South Korea. They is as impressive as Australia was against Turkey. I was even more impressed by South Korea. These guys genuinely looked like a handsy flick, super pressing, great, great style. Like I loved what I saw from them. They had, for those of us who were able to stay up to watch that game, for those of us who were able to keep our eyes open for that long, it was beyond belief. The level of passing in that final third was amazing, and I know everyone expected Heung-min Son really to be the one to carry this team, but for me, it was a mix of Kang and Lee and Bong Hwang, who were the catalysts of this Korean team. I can really see them both getting big moves to moves to teams where they can really shine. Like I know Kang Lee, he's already at PSG, but he's not getting in that front three. I could see him going to like a Marseille. I could see him going to a Roma, some team like that. Same with Mbam Hwang. They've just looked like such a good put together attacking style. And I think that they are firm favorites to win this group.
Yeah, I have to agree with you completely on that. South Korea, they look so good at attack, but I think another aspect of the team which we can't overlook is how they were defensively. First of all, with Kim Min Jae at center back, that's obviously going to give you like a base of solidity, that's going to help you out. And then their goalkeeper had such a good game; he was making a lot of great saves. If he can continue that form, then I think South Korea obviously are very good in possession, very good with pressing, but also very good defensively. And so they're good in all these different facets. I agree with you; they should be the favorites to win the group based on how they did against Czechia, and I think they can really do well at this tournament. If you just combine all the different great features that they have as a team. I do have South Korea fourth, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's deserved. We really need to start looking at South Korea. Potentially is maybe even an equal or similar to their Asian counterparts. Japan. We'll see how they play later today against the Netherlands. 'Cause that hasn't happened yet at the time of recording. But South Korea is definitely a team to not be overlooked, and it's mind-boggling to me how they haven't won an Asian Cup since the '60s.
Yeah, that's crazy. South Korea, they might even be stronger than Japan based on what we saw. They're definitely the team in Asia to look out for based on what we saw from them in this match day one.
For me, for number three, I have Brazil. They looked a lot worse than what we're used to. Like 20 years ago, they would be horrified to see themselves below these top two teams, below Morocco or United States in these rankings, because they really should be so much better than all of them. But I don't know. For me, they've still performed levels higher than most of the teams that we've watched so far. They have a lot better players and they have a lot higher ceiling, but it's just not a convincing Brazil team compared to the ones we've seen before. It's really a low in terms of all-time Brazilian football right now.
You mean I know you say that this is a team that a Brazil that we're not used to seeing, but based on the last 4 years, it is the Brazil that we're used to seeing. They were so poor in qualifiers, and I just don't think that they look much better now at the World Cup. Questions really need to be asked about their attack. I don't think Igor Thiago is going to be the solution to their attack. I don't know if Paqueta had a good game, and Rafinha was so poor. Um, they're defensively really solid. I think that Gabriel, Allison, Marquinhos, and then a midfield pivot of like Bruno G and Casemiro, that's always going to give you a level of defensive solidity. And against Morocco, who were definitely a really strong attacking team, and a threat against them, they were able to show that defensive solidity and strength. But their buildup is something that's really concerning, and it's crazy to say that a Brazil team's strongest attribute is their defensive solidity, and not their ability to build up or attack, and that those are weaknesses. But that's just the state of Brazilian football right now, And I can see their defense. Their defense gives them some level of stability, right? I don't think they're gonna fail to get out of the group because that defense is strong enough. Like I can't see them conceding like 2 goals to Haiti, for example, and like getting eliminated from the group. But against stronger teams, if all you have to rely on is your defense, you can't build up and you can't attack well, then that's going to be really difficult for you against stronger teams, or even against teams like a USA or a Morocco or a team along that level in the round of 32 or round of 16.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it is the Brazil that we've been used to seeing the last few years, and I I do definitely feel that. Like you saw Copa America 2 years ago, couldn't make it to the semifinals. Canada made it to the semifinals. Brazil couldn't, and I know it was Uruguay and Canada had Venezuela or something like that, but still. Not making the semifinals, Copa America was horrendous. Then also losing to Croatia in the World Cup quarterfinals in Qatar. This is just a Brazil team that is getting lower and lower all time. Rafinha, I was really disappointed from what I saw from him. It's I do see some promising players coming up in the future. You got your boys like Endrick, Ryan Vitor, but there are some serious changes needed in the Brazil team. I was looking at Moroccan players out Jogo Bonitoing these Brazilian players for like
You know, I do think that Brazil have some bright spots. I think Vinicius had a good game, and if he can keep up that form, he might be the star who can lead this Brazil team forward. And I think that Neymar could actually save this Brazilian team, and it really depends on the kind of Neymar that comes back. But if Brazil's issue is with progression and bringing the ball forward, who better to help you with progression than Neymar in the attacking midfield position? But it's I'm not sure if we really can have faith in Neymar to save this Brazilian team. So much is depending on his shoulders, and I don't know what level he's going to come back at. He's spent the past 4 years in Saudi and Brazil struggling with injuries. They really need him to have a good tournament if Brazil want to do anything at this World Cup.
yeah, for me, I could definitely see like why people would be hyped for Neymar. But for me, my hype for Neymar, all time low. Brother, if this guy's name was Pedro Santos, you would hear nothing about him. He would be this guy's a bum. He has like he had like 5 goals across the entire Brazilian Serie A league season before that relegation battle where he finally locked in and clutched up and saved Santos. He was going to get relegated from the Brasileiro Serie A. He is so far below, even where we saw him 4 years ago in Qatar. I don't like. Maybe he should start over Igor Thiago, but and anyone on that Brazil team should start over Igor Thiago. I would put Ederson at striker over Igor Thiago on based on what we saw against Morocco yesterday. Like Carlo Ancelotti needs some big changes. They do have some bright spots. Vinny was great yesterday, um, especially against Hakimi, who you think would have locked him up. But Brazil needs a Vinny to to be carrying them this year.
Yeah. So who do you have number two?
My bad, my bad. So for me, my number two is probably your number two as well. I have the United States. 4-1 win against Paraguay. They looked like a team that could be serious threats at this World Cup, especially in that first half. Christian Pulisic, he looked like he could have potentially that legacy tournament, that legacy performance for the US that we've been thinking he could have for so long. He's looking finally like the golden boy, like the LeBron James of soccer that that Americans have been hyping up as for so long. I just really like what I saw out of that Paraguay performance. Giovanni Reina came from spiders and cobwebs to score an insane Trivela that might be the goal of the tournament so far. Like I think the US are starting to put everything together at long last, and it could be scary.
I agree with you completely, man. Like their intensity and their press was amazing. Their buildup was like an actual club team. I mean, what's stopping the U.S. from like going to a quarterfinal or a semifinal based on what we saw against Paraguay? And mind you, Paraguay looks bad, but in all of qualifying, they conceded so few goals. I think they conceded less than Brazil in Cotton Bowl qualifying, like 18 goals in 10 games. This is a team that's been very good defensively against very strong opposition from Colombia, Uruguay, Argentina. That's not weak opposition to be keeping scores down to, and the U.S. is completely able to smack them around just 4-1. I can see the U.S. doing well against a team like a Netherlands, a Belgium. I don't see these teams as even above the USA. Forget levels above. I don't see them as above the U.S. anymore. I mean, how high do you have to go to get a team that's above the U.S. in terms of quality? I can see U.S. as equals to Belgium, to Netherlands, to Morocco even. Do you have to go to like a France and a Spain and a Portugal to see teams that the U.S. isn't an equal to, like the actual tournament favorites? And at that point, you're calling the U.S. a dark horse. Like if you would consider Belgium a dark horse to win the tournament, if you'd consider Morocco a dark horse to win the tournament, then surely you have to put the U.S. in the same category as well, especially if they're playing on home soil. And I know that all sounds so crazy and foreign to say that the U.S. could be a dark horse to win the entire tournament, but based off what we saw what we saw from them against Paraguay, the way they were playing, I think you have to start putting them into those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, honest, honestly, that's so true. Like it's like I hate the United States, and they're starting to make me believe. I was watching them against Paraguay. I could not believe what I was seeing. It was this hate watch turned into a love watch. I was loving this American team, what I was seeing, and it's as a Canadian, it's sad because we're not going to see a bad USA. We're going to be seeing a really good one. Um, I think that maybe it depends on who they face. I don't know if they could really get past the quarterfinal. I think that still a team like Belgium or Morocco will cause them a lot of problems later down the line if they face them. But I could definitely see like we have them above Brazil in these power rankings. They could have a shot against a team like Brazil. And from there, like the sky's the limit.
All right. I think number one is pretty obvious. We both have them here, and based on what we saw, was there ever really any doubt? Morocco in number one. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, Morocco, they look so good. They are on a mission right now to prove that their result in Qatar was no fluke, and right now they are they're 1,000,000% proving that that is a performance yesterday that a contender has. This is the mark of a contender. Who is to say Morocco couldn't win it? Who who could stop Morocco? It was looking at a point in that first half. It could be 2-0. It could end 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. It could have been another 7-1 for Brazil. Like Morocco was looking so good. I just I, I don't know like who could actually end up being Morocco. Morocco Netherlands could be a very possible round of 16 tie if Morocco win the group, which they look like they will, plus Netherlands finishing second in their group. Morocco would be complete favorites in that matchup for like the first time ever. This could end up being the very best African side we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they probably are already the best African side we've ever seen in terms of results. Like, I know the manner they won it was a little bit, was well, not a little bit, very controversial. But you go from being semifinalists, the first African semifinalists at a World Cup, then you break a 50-year drought to an AFCON, and now coming into a tournament like this. And I think what's really promising about Morocco is I think we're yet to see their highest level. Like, I look at how they did, and they were so good, and that's because of mainly Saibari and then their midfield three with Ayanubi, Buadi, Klanus. That was one of the strongest midfields, honestly, probably at this entire World Cup, which is crazy. No one would have predicted that going into it, but they are. But we still have to see the best from Hakimi, Mazraoui, Diaz. I think all these players can still go up another level. And so if you're able to keep that midfield three performing and Saibari performing, these three players who are probably your strongest players going into the tournament can take it to another level. And when they do take it to another level, how much better can Morocco get given the levels that they're already at right now?
Morocco for Morocco, the sky is definitely the limit. I I was watching Buati out there yesterday. Do you know this brother is still 18? Buati is still 18. I'm flabbergasted by that. I feels like he has been around for like 2 or 3 years, and and all knowers of ball were knew how massive Morocco poaching him away from France was for this World Cup. Buati could genuinely become better than Hakimi in terms of Moroccan legends. He looked like a world class midfielder yesterday. He had some nerves, which are pretty standard for an 18-year-old playing your first World Cup match. But it was, I was so surprised watching him. He's 18. I thought he was like 20. He's 18.
Yeah, I mean, Buati has to be one of those players that's going to be getting a big move after this World Cup if he keeps up the way he's performing now. I'm surprised he hasn't already gotten a big move. He's at Lille right now, I believe.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, he's definitely going somewhere big. Yeah, I'd love him at United.
I mean, for Barca, we already have our midfield of the future. We've got Pedro, we've got Frankie, we've got Bernal. I I just don't want him to go to a team like Madrid. Like that, he's gonna be a baller. Whoever he's with, he's gonna be a baller. And I know he could end up like Renato Sanchez syndrome, but no, I feel like he's definitely gonna become an immense midfielder wherever he's at.
Mm.
Even these
Well, that's
guys,
our.
hmm?
Yeah, yeah. What were you saying?
I just feel like Morocco have so many ballers. Like, yeah, he had Saibari at striker yesterday. I I didn't know how that was gonna work, but he looked so good. He had a man of the match performance from striker yesterday. Brahim Diaz, he looked like for me, like he was picking up right where he left off at AFCON. I didn't know that Issa Diop was Moroccan either. I didn't. I was incredibly surprised to see him in that back line. The only thing for me they could stop Morocco is probably that back two with Shadi Riyad and Issa Diop, both of whom are a little
Yeah.
suspect. But other than that, a this could be a World Cup winning team. Let's be so for real.
It really could, That's our top 16 for the first four groups. You know what I noticed when I was doing this top 16 is I think we are yet to see some of the strongest teams at this tournament play. In these first four groups, I mean, Morocco and the US, crazy to say, are probably the two teams I can see maybe making a run to actually win the whole thing. But they're more of outside favorites, or not favorites, but more outside guesses on who could win. And then Brazil were a little bit disappointing. I don't see them winning. And then the rest of these teams, do you really think that a team like South Korea or Turkey might have a chance of, winning this World Cup?
No, for me, when it comes to these teams like a South Korea, like a Turkey, like a Switzerland or a Mexico, I feel like they should be really really happy if they can make like a quarterfinals. If they can make a deep run into the knockouts, that is probably the furthest they'll get. Um, but yeah, for me, there's a lot of class in this tournament. We're still yet to see these of the outside favorites. We're still yet to see teams like Ecuador, like Ivory Coast, like Japan, like Colombia. There's still a lot of other outside favorites who could make these runs that I feel like a team like a Mexico or a South Korea should be really happy to make a quarterfinal.
Mhm. Well, that's that. That's our top 16 power ranking for the World Cup's Group A to D. Let us know in the comment section if you disagree with any of our takes. Let us know your top 16. Thank you for watching. This has been the Full Time Podcast.